Joey Kiddie Shaw 5757 says Villa scored in the first minute not because of injuries, Sim, but because Ange's flawed one-dimensional system has our fullbacks constantly halfway up the pitch in no position to help defend our goal. Injuries or not, we still have a good enough team on the pitch to not get absolutely battered week in, week out by some of the league's worst teams, by the way. 16 defeats in all comps by early Feb. It's going to be 20 plus by the end of the season. Bournemouth have 7 to 8 injuries. Do you hear Areola constantly whining about it? Newcastle were decimated by injuries last season. They finished 7th. Ange's flawed methods are to blame for our embarrassing season, as are our injuries. Also, he told Celtic medical team when he first arrived, no coincidence, the same problems are happening at Tottenham. Since this arrived in N17, the unenviable records this guy's breaking are a mile long. Factually, our worst manager in 30 plus years, some say ever, with the stats that make Christian Gross look like prime Guardiola. Any half-wit Tottenham fans still backing the Aussie gem to turn this around. Maybe football ain't for you guys. I think when you talk about comparing it to Bournemouth and Newcastle, first of all, Bournemouth, Newcastle around this time were around 13th, so it was affecting them. They did turn it around late in the season when they got their players back. That's what happened. Yes, they finished 7th after a good end to the season.
I think Newcastle only had like one really bad patch through in the season of like 5-6 games, didn't they?
They lost, I think, 9 and 15.
Was it 9 Premier League games?
Yeah.
Or was that during, because Champions League they did pretty poorly and they finished like bottom of their group, didn't they?
No, I'm talking Premier League.
Because I was looking at it, I was actually looking at their form a few days ago. I only saw like one like run which was poor.
Which was 9 defeats in 15. That was a poor run.
You sure it was that?
That's what I saw.
Okay.
9 defeats in 15 in the Premier League, which led them to being at the time 13th. They got their players back and they turned it around. And fair enough, they finished 7th. Also, Newcastle were a good team. They got Champions League the year before. They probably entered it in a better phase than us. Eddie Howe's been there a bit longer. Bournemouth. Yes, they got 7 injuries, absolutely, especially their strikers being out, and they're coping better than we are. First of all, they're only playing 1 game a week, so it's a bit different, I think, to us. And also, in terms of the other players, is it in the positions that, in terms of the importance that we have? I know they got their strikers out, but look, Iraola's a good manager as well, and I think he's doing well, but it's a different scenario. We're in the Cups, we're in Europe, we're playing every 3 days. I think if you add European football to Bournemouth right now, I bet you they wouldn't be keeping up the same form that they are right now. In terms of Villa scoring the first minute, not because of injuries. Yeah, I agree. That wasn't because of injuries. That was because of the system. But again, I don't think that was inherently because of how we play the system. I think it's because how we start that game. We're playing. First of us, we are starting it with a fatigue team that came back from Thursday. Villa had a free week, but as well we're playing players who are making their debuts. We've got 18-year-olds playing in the heart of the midfield who are maybe not as positionally disciplined as they should be. You've got some players doing their job, some players not doing their job. If one player doesn't do their job, the whole thing falls apart. You watch the first goal, that's exactly what happened. One player wasn't doing their job and the whole thing fell apart. That's what happens at this kind of level. So the margins are so fine. You're saying getting battered, but actually you've only lost to Liverpool by more than a goal. And that's what I mean by fine margins. All these games, a lot of these games have been quite close, and I know losing by a goal is nothing to celebrate. My point being is at this level, even when you're at your best, it can be fine margins. The margins can be minuscule, and so if you're off it by a few percent here and there, we're off it by more than 1%, by the way, right now. But even if it's 1% here and there, that can be the difference between winning and losing, 100%. And right now, the percentage points are way off for us, and that's why you're seeing lots of losses. But even in that scenario, the games are still even very, very close. So that shows me that if we had a few more players back and a bit more fitness, those results would be different, and that's the reality. And yes, I understand the frustration. I understand that. It's not nice to see, and I understand the hurt right now. Everyone's hurting, but I just think right now you can blame the manager, fair enough, and it might be all his fault, and that might be the case. But I just think there's a lot of context and situations going to what's led to where we are right now at this point, and I think a lot of people don't like to look at that and just like to see he's losing these games. So he's not good enough and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's important to analyse the whole situation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this Newcastle thing you're talking about. It's like 9. Depends where you want to go from. I don't know when the injury crisis actually started for Newcastle, but they went through a period here from Everton to Man City where they've lost every game apart from Fulham. I don't know when the injury crisis was, but a lot of these were against top teams, barring a 1-0 away defeat to Luton, 3-1 at home to Forest, and 3-0 away to Everton. Every other game was against the top side. But they've
That's
also
3 defeats. That's quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean we've had more, if not similar.
Yeah, I'm not saying we're better.
They've also seemed to manage it a bit better. 1-0 against Arsenal, 4-1 against Chelsea, 1-0 at home to Manchester United, 3-0 win at home to Fulham. They had results as well. They seem to manage their injury crisis a lot better than us.
My point is they lost 9 in 15, and they they were 13th at the time, similar to us. We're 14th, so it's very similar in terms of the situation.
Are we 14th? I thought we were lower than that.
We're 14th.
Oh, we're 14th now, are we? After the win against Brentford.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, can you see us finishing 7th?
I think it's unlikely, but if they turned it around later in the season, we have to have a similar run of form, probably. Because they won a lot of games, I think, near the end of the season. That got them to that position.
But I still think with they picked up a lot more points on their injury crisis than we're going to pick up, that we picked up.
Yeah. And also they probably went into the season a better team than we were. They just got Champions League. Eddie Howe's been there a bit longer, probably a bit of a more stronger team. So that's also probably why they dealt with it better. But I'm just saying they went for a similar run. Like it wasn't that dissimilar on the face of it. If you're just going to compare it overall, we finished this now 3-3. Vincent Kompany got his team relegated. Now he's leading Bayern to the title, and now every Ange out Spurs supporter thinks he's amazing and would take him in a heartbeat. Do we? I don't know. Well, would you take Kompany?
I don't know. I think he's a good manager. I do think he's a good manager, and I think would
you take him in a heartbeat?
Not in a heartbeat. I'd have to consider it heavily, but I do think he's a good manager, and I think getting relegated with Burnley, I don't think you can really judge him on, because Burnley were favourites for the drop. I mean, look at their squad.
Anyway, the comment continues, says, Ange single-handedly turned a toxic Spurs team around immediately with Conte's players, also right after losing their greatest player of all time. But that freak Chelsea game with injuries imploded the run, not too dissimilar to Man City losing Rodri in a freak accident. But Ange recovered for Europa League position in the end, only 1 win shy of the Champions League. If anyone is saying that Ange is tactically naive at this level, then explain how his tactics achieved a European position, narrowly missing out on top 4, and a semi-final cup run beating City and Man United with most players injured in the league. Explain how Eddie Howe had a good season, then with lots of games and injuries, people were calling for his head. Now Newcastle are back and everyone thinks he's good again. Ange out not because of incompetence, but because Spurs don't deserve him. I think I saw a lot of Newcastle fans last season calling for Eddie Howe's head. I mean, mainly True Geordie, who I was watching during the crisis, but I saw a lot of the time when they were losing games, he was calling for Eddie Howe's head, saying he's got to go, he's not good enough, like, even with these injuries, he's got to be doing better. And lo and behold, he got the players back, and all of a sudden, everyone loves him again.
Yeah. I would take Eddie Howe at Spurs. Would you take him?
I like him. I'd take him at Spurs, but I'm just saying he's had a similar trajectory to Ange. In a sense, got to have had a good year where we obviously just missed out on top 4. They got top 4, and then had a big injury crisis and it derailed their season with the increasing European games which they had, which is not too dissimilar to what we've been going for. Obviously, we're still 14 games to the end of the season, so we don't really know where we're going to finish. But they were 13th for a period last season as well, midway through the season, but they turned it around. So it's not like. Maybe if you were a Newcastle fan last season, you might have also been calling for his head.
I might have been, but I think that he still showed enough in terms of that period and got more results than what Ange is getting in our period. And the teams that we're losing to is nothing short of embarrassing. And
Yeah, but we also beat
you're gonna
Liverpool in the
say
first leg. We also beat United.
beating Liverpool in the first leg ultimately means nothing, doesn't it? If we're losing,
We
like that in the second leg.
yeah, I know, I understand that, but I'm just saying, in terms of isolated result, you're picking out isolated results. I'm saying we still had some good results in there as well. Like we beat Southampton, beat Brentford. Like there are some isolated results if you're going to pick them out. So overall, it looks awful, and it is awful. But same with Newcastle, like they lost a lot of games.
Yeah. But look, I think Eddie Howe. I just think Eddie Howe managed that situation better. And yeah, maybe I would have wanted Eddie Howe out at that point, but towards the end of the season, I would have probably changed my mind. Ange still has the ability to change my mind, but I just doubt he will, and I hope he will.
Fair enough. John GI8JG says, look what happened with Liverpool in the FA Cup, and some of their second team players are better quality than ours. Ange is right in saying that we basically have been playing with the same players non-stop who are not our first team players, and because they can't rest, their performances will suffer. Yes, you can say Ange's tactics are bad and all, but fit squad can go deep in Europa League considering the teams are in it. If we sack him, we'll get Mason. If you think, do you think he'll do a better job? I prefer to keep Ange till the end of the season. P.S. Anyone who says Terzic or Allegri, sorry, but WTF.
Yeah, I don't want. I mean, I said I wanted Allegri just as a firefighter manager keeps in the league, but that's not going to happen now. So I agree with him. I don't want Terzic or Allegri. I just don't agree with what they say about that's all he had and he couldn't rotate players when he could have. There are situations throughout the season where some of our players could have played significantly less minutes than what they've played this season, and it's culminated in players being dead out on their feet, and there's no point playing players that are dead. You may as well give some academy players a go.
Demo891 says, I think this is replying to the 3 versus 1 debate. He says, this is so frustrating. It's like watching Professor Dave arguing with a flat earther. And Sim is the Professor Dave. Every point the other 3 make, Sim highlights why they're factually wrong and actually makes them look like flat earthers. To actually say that Ange isn't helping make the team younger whilst playing 4 times 17 and 18-year-olds with the rest of the team being the lowest combined age in the Prem just goes to show how stupid they sound. They even said that whoever we get in is doomed, but still wants to change the manager and can't give an intelligent reason why. Don't look at where we are, look at why we are here. It doesn't have to be a reason you like or want to hear, but the reasons are actually pretty clear. Brian just loves a whinge.
It's funny that you should bring that up because Brains actually called you a flat earther last night.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. He said, I'm the one who sounds like a flat earther. But who is it? What's his name? Demo. Demo says all 3 of you sound like 3 flat earthers. Well, to be fair, the world used to believe the world was flat and they were all wrong.
They were all wrong.
But in terms of, what did he say? In terms of this point, they even said whoever we get in now is doomed, but still want to change the manager.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do agree to a sense that anyone that we get in right now at this moment in time is doomed. And I mean, I'm well past the moment where I'm saying sack Ange now, sack Ange now. I haven't said that probably since, I can't remember which game I came out and said it in. But, you know, a few weeks after that, I said, you know, give him till the end of the season. And I'm still kind of that thinking. I just don't think a manager comes in and completely changes our fortunes now, but I just don't believe he lasts past this season, nor do I believe that he'll deserve to.
Well, I think that judgment can only be made at the end of the season, I think.
Yeah.
Philip Winter 2343 says Ipswich, Palace, Leicester and Tamworth. Sim, please. I get it. No, I get it. Those results, I mean, apart from the Tamworth one, those obviously results we had with when we had our first choice players and we still lost those games, and that's fair, and that's also something you can throw at Ange and say, look at that. But I would argue in that period we're also getting good results, and as much as we were getting disappointing results like this, we're also getting some results where we could show really good football and blow teams away.
Is it not mad to you to think, when you look at the bottom 4 in the league, we've played Southampton once, we've got 3 points, right? That's fair enough. We've played Ipswich once, we've got 0 points off them at home. We've played Leicester twice. We've got 1 point off them. We've played Everton twice, and we've got 3 points off them. Like, whatever injury crisis we're in, it's nowhere near at the levels. You know, even if you've got a lot of injuries, you should be getting better than that. A lot better than that.
I mean, again, I said this yesterday when we had the debate. Like, when you're
Wolves as well.
when you're physically not there, like we're not at the moment, that's going to lead to a lot of bad results. Like, that's the number one thing in sport, like, that you need just to be on the level playing field, is to have that physicality. That's why usually when all those things are equal, right, then you have tactics and all these all these different things come into play when things are equal. And I think when you're going into the games, it's always kind of assumed that going into all these games, these things are equal. That's why there's such a heavy emphasis on the tactics certain manager deploys and all these different things. I just think right now that it's not equal for us. I think that's just reality. And I think if we were to go in, as I said this, and I maintain it, if we were to play a whole season with the players at this kind of physical level, with only these players available, we would probably get relegated, losing most games. That is the reality, because they're at the moment physically they're just not on a level playing field with their opponents right now. I think that's just why we're losing all these games week after week, and that I think that is what's costing us results. So I think, yes, you can judge them right now against these smaller teams. We should be beating them, and so right now. But I think when you're not physically at the level, that's going to severely hamper you. Like, you can be as good as you want, but if you can't run like you should be able to, like your peak fitness, like probably your opponents can, that's going to have a bigger effect on you losing the game rather than the quality of the player and all that kind of stuff right now, especially at this kind of level, I think, anyway. And I would like to believe we, even with all these injuries and all this kind of stuff, we should be beating these teams. And obviously, I think the Leicester game we were 1-0 up and then we gave it away in the second half. Everton we were 3-0 down in that first half. It was after we changed formation. Look, that probably wasn't just down to injuries. Why we lost that game was probably the change of formation as well, and that has to be down to the manager. I'm not saying he's blameless. He's probably made mistakes during this run for sure.
Probably.
Yeah, he probably has. I don't deny that. He's made mistakes during this run.
I'd say definitely.
He's made mistakes during this run. I'm happy to say it, but I think managing this kind of run is a near impossible task. I think any manager would probably be making mistakes. No one's going to manage this set of circumstances perfectly, I think. And you're going to be trying different things. You're going to be trying to find different ways to manage it. And at the end of the day, when you only have a certain amount of players available and they're all knackered, there's only so much you can do, I feel.
And still in this run, he's not giving players like Sergio Reguilon a go, which is madness when Pedro Porro's played like the most minutes out of everyone in the whole of Europe. Why is he not giving at least a small amount of players that he's got at his disposal? Why is he still not giving some of the players that are needed a big respite that they need? Why? It just makes no sense.
You can throw the Reguilon thing at him. You know, fair. Like, if you say, you know, you're going to hang your hat on, he should be playing someone like Reguilon. Fair enough.
It's not just hanging your hat on it. It's giving players a rest so they can perform better in future games. It's not rocket science.
He decides that he's a player he can't trust. That's what he thinks.
But he can trust players that are completely out on their feet and can't give the energy required in the game.
That's what he thinks.
But what do you think? I'm not asking you what he thinks. I'm asking what you think.
Yeah, I think he probably should be playing Reguilon a bit more. But I also understand that if you've taken the decision, this guy, you don't trust him, right? And you think he's not part of my plans, he should have been gone years ago, then I understand that you're reluctant to use him.
Do you not think we're past that, though, like with the situation that we're in? Like, surely...
He's played him a bit.
He's played him a bit, but nowhere near enough. Nowhere near. He's played him what? And he started him, the only game he started is Tamworth.
Yeah, and he came on against Leicester and Newcastle.
And has he been terrible in any of the games that he's played?
He's been all right, I guess.
Yeah, he hasn't been terrible. He's shown that he's competent at this level. So, I mean, there's no reason why some of these players, taking Mikey Moore off at half-time pretty much in the last couple of games that he's played as well, like, these are the players that have the energy levels to actually show something, when the players, we're just keeping them, running them into the ground, when if you give them that little bit of rest, not saying in that particular game where you play Reguilon or you play Mikey Moore for 90 minutes, we're going to win that game, but it gives you a better chance in the next game when our good players are more rested.
Potentially, but he's... Again, I don't disagree with you completely. I think that I disagree with the Mikey Moore one. I think the guy's 17, and I think you can't just if he's made the decision he's got to manage him, and that's fair enough. He's got to protect Mikey Moore, and I think in the game against Villa he was getting bullied a bit, in my opinion, and I think it was probably the right decision to take him off. But I think
no one else was really showing more than him.
Well, I think maybe not. That first half everyone was bad though.
Yeah.
Everyone was bad.
And if anything, Mikey Moore actually was the only one that created a chance.
Yeah, I know, but he was struggling. He was struggling out there.
Like everyone else.
Yes, but he's 17, When there's got a 17-year-old kid there and he's struggling, you take him out the firing line. I think that's also a fair thing. And I think also was a good change. I think it was a good change. Like, we improved. So it was a good change.
15 minutes, then went back to our usual self.
Yeah, after we conceded while we're on top, like that can happen. Momentum could get away from you, but we definitely did improve and probably should have scored in that period. Anyway, yeah, Reguilon could have been used more. Would that have helped the situation a bit? Maybe a tiny bit. I don't know how much it helps, but it probably would have helped a bit with fitness. But I think Porro's actually not been bad in the past few weeks. I think Porro's been all right, and Spencer's obviously been playing well. So I don't think that's been our big problem.
The Porro was shocking at Villa Park.
He created chances. It
was also a gaping hole on that right-hand side once again.
Yeah, but I think again that wasn't to do with Porro. I think it's more to do with the tactics.
Even worse then.
Yeah, no, but it's to do with the mishmash of players trying to fill out these tactics, these pressing structures, when a lot of them are tired and a lot of them are new to the team, a lot of them are young and inexperienced. It's a whole mishmash of things.
So it is to do with overplaying him then?
No, not that specific one. I don't think so. I'm saying it's a whole mishmash of things. It's a whole thing put together and a melting pot of problems that's caused these issues. Vinicius Carrier 8411. When you have a problem, you must acknowledge and face it. That is what Sim is talking about. Stay online or at the stadium moaning about lack of wins and bad games without understanding what is going on right now and what is the standard for any ENIC employee is nonsense. Ange is fighting and a lot of supporters are behaving as spoiled children. If Ange is gone, we solve the problem. No, so he is not the problem.
So what's he saying? What is the problem?
Above.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I do agree with that. And I think people do mistake maybe my constant, debates on Ange Postecoglou thinking he's not good enough to think that I'm not aware of what the main problem is at this football club. I completely am aware of the main problem at this football club, and that is ENIC and Daniel Levy, and it always will be. And that's why I'm probably not saying, Ange needs to go now, because ultimately, do I think anything's going to change even in the long run? Probably not.
Wally Son Guimera says, first 9 Premier League games of the season when the squad was fully fit and Ange didn't have any excuses. 4 wins, 1 draw, 4 losses.
Yeah, I mean, the results, even before the injury crisis, was still a crazy amount of losses, wasn't it?
It was, but again, after the City game, we were 6th. So it wasn't like we were in a bad position.
Yeah, but I think because this season's been a bit of an outlier.
We were 6th because the season's been a bit of an outlier.
Yeah, like the top teams are performing poorer than maybe they have done over the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, but the season's a season. That's just reality.
Yeah.
And it is an outlier. I think I agree. I think the amount of games in Europe is increasing, and all these different things. I think the middle teams are clearly getting better, more organised, more settled as well. They've got good managers.
You look at our wins to loss ratio from the first 10 games of the season to even the end of last season, or even just before the injury crisis. Forget what every other team is doing. It's not good enough for what we're trying to achieve.
Yes, but 6th would have been fine for that time. It would have been all right. Like if we were in 6th now, no one's complaining, regardless of whether it's an outlier season or not.
Just purely on wins to losses. I'm not talking about where we are in the table. It's not good enough. Regardless of win to losses, is about where you are on the table. That's what people care about. That's why
obviously it's like on the face of it, but if you have a bad win-to-loss ratio, but you're actually in a good position in the table, no one's going to care.
Yes, but you look at compared to other managers, right? And other managers have done a lot better with worse squads.
Yeah, different situation. I mean, yeah, probably. Yeah, they have, but there's different situations. They're not. A lot of them don't have European football to contend with. Not they're playing one game a week, and we didn't. We finished 5th, and we're doing quite well. So it's different.
Who didn't have European football?
What managers are you talking about then?
I'm talking about all our managers. They all had European football.
Are you talking about our old? I thought you were talking about other teams in the league. Yeah, but they also had Prime Kane and Prime Son, and Kane bailed us out many a time. Joey, last one, Joey Narg 4480. Sim is right. All the fools are nitpicking. Fact of the matter is that injuries have effed us. I'm not saying we are going to win the league if we did not suffer our injuries, but we definitely would not be where we are now. So nitpicking on Ange for not picking another person with a few options that are open to him is ludicrous. Having Ben Davies or Gray at centre-back doesn't decide those wins. Both are inadequate. Also, young players are options at his disposal, should be used if there is a need. Squad usage is a must.
I don't think it's nitpicking. I think it's just literally being able to manage your squad in a better way. And I thought it was madness, the Gray and Ben Davies thing. Particularly, look at the amount of minutes Gray's played since this injury crisis has come. It's just madness. And Ben Davies, obviously coming back from injury, he hasn't played too much football. Right? Why would he play Gray over Davies at centre-back in that Villa game?
No, I thought it was strange, but also Gray hasn't been injured. Davies is coming back from an injury and he's been probably overplayed since he's come back from the injury. So maybe he felt he needed the rest more than Gray. I don't know. That's I have to ask Ange that. I did think it was strange. I thought Davies probably made more sense in that game, but he decided maybe he feels Gray can do what he wants on the ball more than Davies. I don't know. I don't know why he decided to feel that way, but I wouldn't look at that and think, oh, that's just crazy. I can kind of see why maybe he decided it, but yeah, I probably would have played Davies. That probably would have been my choice.
I think it is crazy because I think you're just running players into the ground for no reason.
But maybe he would argue Davies has been overplayed since he's come back and shouldn't have played that much, and he's risking getting re-injured if he plays maybe more than Gray risks getting injured because he's 18 and he can handle it. Maybe that's what he feels.
18. I thought when you're 18 you need to manage your minutes.
No, you need to bed them in, but he's now bedded in. He's now been playing week in, week out.
Every single minute since like the start of December or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
Which is madness.
Yeah, it's a lot. And you should be protecting players of that age, but he's one who's played a whole season in the Championship. He knows what English football's like. He's obviously been bedded into Tottenham for the first half of the year. So I think it's a different case to youth players, I think, who only played under 21 football. I think it's a completely different scenario.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's it.
All right, well, that is us reacting to your comments, people. Get your comments in because we'll be reacting all over again next week. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today.